Hello.
Hello, everybody. Just give everybody a couple of seconds to join us. Welcome to today's webinar, the first one of our Talking Technical series, which is very exciting. Today, I'm Jane from HomeNotes, and today we have Samantha from Drench Bathrooms. She's a senior designer for them, and she is going to be talking to us today all about how to design small bathrooms, because let's face it, we probably all have more things than we want to put in our bathrooms than we can. So she's going to be taking us through that today. If everyone could just say hi, just let us know that you're there. Hi, Lizzie. Great, everybody's back to school, ready to get started. Hello. What's going to happen today is we're going to have Samantha's going to talk us through. It will probably take between 25-30 minutes for the talk. Please drop your questions in as you go along. We've got Amy in the background who's going to be answering anything that she can as we go through. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So we'll pick up those questions at the end, and Samantha will be able to answer those for us then. So great. Oh, everybody's ready to go. Have you got your slides? Do you want to start?
Let's get these open.
And I will hand it over to you.
Can you see that okay?
Yes. Yeah,
lovely.
Great.
Brilliant. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. I just really want to echo what Jane said, really. So this is obviously the first of the Talking Technical webinar sessions. The main point of this talk today is to discuss the importance of optimizing the space available to you, and obviously to touch on ways to incorporate things like effective additional lighting, touches of extra storage, and then those finishing little details that really help to make a bathroom work for you and your lifestyle. So obviously on your screen, you'll see a summary of the types of things that I'll be discussing with you. So I'll just get stuck straight in. So understanding the challenges of small bathrooms. So I'm sure that you will all agree that the functionality and practicality of any space should be equally as, if not more important than the aesthetic side, especially when undertaking a project of this nature. Yet commonly, we find that this part often falls to the wayside, and some of the most important elements of planning, such as the spacing around each of the different components, are overlooked. So what are the main challenges with smaller bathrooms? And what can we do to ensure that we are making the most of the space available to us? Here are a few of what I'd consider to be the biggest hurdles to overcome in a bathroom that is spatially challenged. So pitch ceilings. Pitch ceilings often occur when your bathroom is within the eaves of a roof. And although this can be somewhat beneficial for creating much sought after cavity space for things like concealed shower valves, concealed frames and cisterns, etc., this also proves a real design challenge for incorporating the likes of shower enclosures or having a shower over the bath with a bath screen, for example. And this is because of the lack of sheer head height. So pitch ceilings can actually render parts of your bathroom as completely unusable because of the head height issue, which is often created by steep slopes. So be extra careful to take this into account when you're deciding on a layout. And the same works very similarly for the likes of ceiling heights. So similarly to sloping ceilings, overall ceiling heights that are considerably below the average of 2.4 meters can also impact the design of a small bathroom, as it tends to limit the products that are readily available to you. It's a good idea to understand whether the overall ceiling height is likely to change with floor or ceiling preparations as part of your refurbishment. So once you've ascertained what the final overall ceiling height is likely to be, you'll need to ensure that the heights of the products you are considering work within the remits of the heights available, also allowing for things like ventilation, as failing to do so could result in damage occurring to your ceiling post-installation, which can be costly to rectify. For example, make sure that you take the height of the shower tray or the overall height of the shower tray and the shower enclosure if it is raised, to ensure that you've got at least 150 millimeters worth of ventilation. So obviously on the slide in front of you, you can see two examples. The one on the left is obviously an example where the head heights haven't been taken into consideration. You can see this setup wouldn't work. So the one on the right, we've made selections to ensure that you've got at least 150 millimeters of ventilation there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Samantha, that when you're talking about those sloping ceiling heights, it brings to mind obviously loft extensions.
Exactly.
And they can be quite tricky to manage, mainly because obviously the space hasn't been created yet. So do you find people come back like two times? Like, so one, you get your bathroom set up, but then I guess people might need to come back again once the room is actually constructed to just make sure that all the fittings actually fit as you expect them to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, it's really helpful when you do likes of loft conversions. You tend to get architectural plans, and they're great and a really useful guide. But we do often find with projects like loft conversions that the overall dimensions can vary from reality. So it's great to do some research and put some planning in place initially, but you will always need to double, maybe even triple check wouldn't hurt. And there will be alterations. It's just normal.
Yeah, I guess getting that tape measure, as soon as the timbers go in, the timber structure, you can start taking those measurements again. Yeah.
Exactly. Fab. Yeah.
Right.
Brilliant. So storage. I think a large portion of you might be able to relate to the fact that we all seem to have so many different lotions and potions in a bathroom. And then there are spare towels, the towels that are currently in use, plus all of your much needed cleaning products. I'm sure some of you can agree that it can be a real mission to find a permanent home for everything listed. I know I, for one, am one of those people. There are places in the bathroom that have great storage potential and are often really underutilized. Some are fairly obvious and perhaps some not so obvious. So what I've done is I've detailed some helpful tips and tricks that I feel will be most beneficial to you. So we'll start with the likes of underbath storage, for example. The majority of bath panels are installed on magnetic clip-like systems, so these can actually be easily removed and reinstated to allow full access to beneath the bath. Even in instances where you've opted to have a tiled-in aesthetic, you can leave yourself an access hatch, which I believe is good practice regardless, for occasions that could result in you requiring access to the plumbing beneath the bath in the future. As a minimum, I find even a solution that means you can stow away just your cleaning products in this otherwise unused space can really help. Alcoves and recessed cabinetry. So if you're fortunate enough to have a cavity within one or multiple of your walls, then it may be worth taking advantage of this by building into your walls rather than surface mounting products instead. The benefit of this being that it doesn't take up valuable space in your bathroom and is aesthetically pleasing, which can provide a real focal point as well as doubling up as more storage space. You can also use wall cavities to recess cabinetry or even have something bespokely made by a carpenter to ensure that it caters for all of your storage needs. Here are some examples in front of you which show how you can make the most of your internal wall cavity.
Samantha, is it okay if I just chip in then? I was just thinking with that bathroom storage, I know that on several renovation projects that we've done, we've tried to get that detail. And when we've come, the contractors kind of done it themselves, you know, like made you know, cut a hole in the timber and tiled it. And it's been really messy and it's not had the aesthetic kind of look that we wanted. So we got a little bit nervous about doing those. And then we came across, like you said, those magnetic trims. But you can buy them as like a product or a kit. So that's really great if to kind of make sure that your contractor is going to do it as you hoped. Buy them the kit so that they have all the pieces there that they're going to follow to kind of make that a really neat kind of installation. And I guess in the polite ones as well. And then the other thing is a mistake that we've also made in the past is when you're having those alcoves, you've got to get in there when they're building obviously the timber stud walls. Yeah. Or if you're uncovering stud walls, then they might need to be altered to just make sure that they are making the supports in the right places, that you can use those and just get in there with the drawings early enough.
Exactly. I mean, I can't stress enough how important it is to get planning early on. Leave no stone unturned. There's no such thing as too much detail. The more detail that you put into a project, the more you're going to get out of it at the other end. So, no, brilliant point. I would definitely recommend looking into kits specifically made to ensure a neater finish, just in case perhaps your trade person hasn't maybe done many of them before. It's not something a lot of people think of, so definitely worth the investment.
Great.
Brilliant. So then we'll look at over door and high up storage as well. So one of the quickest and easiest ways of adding additional storage is through shelving, whether it be off the shelf, wooden or glass shelves, pardon the pun, or creating something unique through a recycling and upcycling scheme, using the likes of reclaimed scaffolding boards or discarded pallets. Shelving is best placed in areas that aren't often used for anything, such as above a toilet or higher up on walls. Another area that isn't frequently thought of as an opportunity for increasing storage capacity, whether in the form of alcove or shelving, is above the doorway in your bathroom. And this is obviously only if applicable. There are instances in which you might have some glass above your door, which is intended to act as a night light. So instances like that, unfortunately, this wouldn't apply to you. But where you don't have anything like that above, definitely worth considering putting something above the door. You can see this obviously demonstrated in the images that are attached. The magic of lighting, one of my favorites. So smaller bathrooms can feel like quite dark and claustrophobic places if you neglect to take the importance of lighting into consideration when planning its refurbishment. This can be exacerbated all the more when faced with some of the design challenges that were raised earlier. An LED central ceiling light or a handful of fire-rated LED spotlights are fantastic ways to provide an abundance of lighting, especially in the absence of any natural light. However, you might not want to stop there, and I'd encourage you not to stop there. It can be really effective to add some accent lighting for the purposes of creating a feature or illuminating darker areas of the bathroom. You can introduce extra lighting inside alcoves, beneath wall-hung vanity units, as part of plinths of bath panels. But just ensure that the selected lights are the appropriate IP rating for wherever you decide to place them. You could consider having any secondary lighting wired separately from your main circuit, so that these lights can be operated independently from your overhead lighting. This is a nice touch for creating a spa-like ambience when bathing, or for the convenience of using them as a nightlight for when you need to use your facilities late at night. There are many alternative ways to brighten a bathroom too, such as illuminated mirrors and cabinets, wall sconces, illuminated extractor fans, and smart toilets, to name a few. I've shown a few of my favourites with the accompanying imagery.
Yeah, I love the low-level lighting. I guess we always have the conflict of if you have an extractor attached to your circuit, to your lighting circuit, which lighting circuit you add it to. What's your preference or thoughts about that?
So always going to boil down to personal preference first and foremost. I can understand the argument for both. Obviously, some people prefer it to be wired in with the main circuit, just purely for the fact that some people can often forget to turn the extractor fan on. But then that can be at the annoyance of others, where you just want to use the loo quickly late at night, put the light on, turn it off, and then you've got to lie in bed and listen to the extractor fan ticking over for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So really, it's going to be down to what's important to you. I think if I was to give my 2 pennies worth, I'd probably say leave it tied in with the main light in the bathroom, so the main circuit, and use the lower circuit, so the accent lighting I just spoke of, as your night light and quick lighting late at night.
I guess if you have people that forget to put the extractor on a lot, then you could have a humidity sensor as well that might just trigger when you have the shower on, for example.
Exactly. There's loads of options out there. So there will almost definitely be an option to cater for everybody's needs. Humidity sensor extractor fans are a fab idea.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. Obviously, it's going to be the same all the way through, but contractors quite often just put in just a regular one, just without asking. So if you want something special or different, or you want it on a particular circuit, then yes, you've got to have that conversation early on with them.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, you have to bear in mind that your contractor isn't using the bathroom. They're not the intended end user. So, their thought process isn't about using it and how it might work for you and your lifestyle. So it's very important that you voice those opinions early on and do the research and get the products that best suit you.
Thanks.
Fab. So, space in general. So when you're limited on space, the last thing that you want to try and do is place too many different objects in the room, turning your bathroom into a real life jigsaw puzzle. This can also often mean that you end up compromising on the sizes of some or all of the products, which can lead to scenarios where things are not as practical as they could or should be. As an example, it might mean that the basin you end up selecting, for example, is in fact the same size as the one you've also selected for your cloakroom, meaning that washing your face often leads to heightened splashing and water accumulating on the floor, which, let's be honest, is a slip hazard. It really is often the case in bathrooms that less is more. So it's probably perhaps easiest to start by devising a couple of different lists in your free time. Or perhaps you want to sit down and do this together with the rest of your household to ensure that you leave no stone unturned. Start with the things that are your non-negotiable essentials. So this will be what components you need in your bathroom. Well, what is it that you absolutely cannot compromise on? So this will be areas such as, but not limited to, a bath if you have young children, or if you're planning on expanding your family in the future. Or perhaps you want to future-proof your bathroom. So accessibility is something that you'd consider a must. Therefore, you're considering a low-profile shower tray or level access shower tray paired with a walk-in shower screen. You may wish to know if there are specific attributes to these essential items that are also important to you. So perhaps you want a bath with a large capacity and a great heat retention for those evening-long soaks. But it also has to double up as a spacious shower for those early morning quick showers when you're stuck for time. In your second list, you might want to compile a wish list of the components that you'd like to introduce into your bathroom, but it isn't necessarily the end of the world if you weren't to achieve any or all of them. And these could be things like a tall storage unit to house those toiletries and spare towels that we spoke of earlier, or a double basin and vanity unit to alleviate some bathroom traffic during peak times of the day. It can be helpful to take a look at blogs, forums, and some websites designed to provide you with thought-provoking, inspirational imagery for the likes of Pinterest and Instagram. I've actually provided you here with 3 examples from drench.co.uk's website, just to give you an idea as to what I mean by inspirational imagery. Get an understanding of the things that you like and the things that you love. But it is also just as important to gain a better understanding of the things that you don't like and identify areas of your existing bathroom that you feel could be improved. such as the chunky framework around your shower enclosure, or that hard to reach area behind the toilet that you're desperately trying to keep clean. Knowledge in this instance is power, and really it is. Please do research. Seek advice from your tradespeople early on. This is pretty much the theme of what me and Jane have been saying. And get an understanding of any restrictions that you might be faced with. Some common ones, for example, are little to no wall cavity, meaning that your shower system needs to be exposed and you cannot hide the plumbing the way in which you'd hoped. Low water pressure. This can affect your selection of brassware, as you need to ensure that your water system meets the minimum pressure requirements to operate adequately. Concrete substrate. This may potentially mean that your shower tray will need to be raised, or you might require a shower tray with a waste in a specific location. Or subsidence, so substantial movement in the walls and floor, which can impact the choice you make on appropriate wall and floor coverings. Perhaps in this instance, you might want to consider a floating floor because of the risks associated with tiling. It is essential to be spatially aware when planning a refurbishment, especially in a bathroom. You need to consider how a product is intended to work. So for instance, have you left enough space to open the drawers and still be able to stand in front of your vanity unit comfortably? Can you walk around the perimeter of your room without having to narrowly avoid clashing with items or side shuffling past things? As a designer, there are approximate recommended distances for between components that we generally work with. But we would encourage that you use your own discretion and exercise your own judgment, as what you find comfortable may very well differentiate from these recommendations. So these will be things like a minimum of 750 millimeters width for a toilet, leaving at least 600 millimeters in front of the toilet. A minimum of 550 millimeters walk-through space, but remember, the greater the distance, the better. And this will also include the entrances to walk-in showers. A minimum of 100 to 150 millimeters between each component. Be careful to avoid placing vanity units up against the wall, as this can interfere with the drawer and door mechanisms. I regularly suggest that you replicate your bathroom and template out the footprint of each of the products in the physical space. You can achieve this by using products such as masking tape and old newspapers and magazines. Doing so provides you with a fairly accurate insight into what your bathroom will be like with the specification in question.
I love that. I think there's some people asking for those dimensions, which we're going to send a replay, so we could add that list into the replay document. But it just made me think of going out when we're doing projects, just having a tape measure in your bag, when you're thinking about things, just one of those little kind of material ones, so that if you're in I would think when you're in a restaurant bathroom and you're in a cubicle and you're like, how much is this? Or actually that feels quite comfortable, because sometimes it can be surprising. I think I have been in some very small spaces and thought, you know what, this is below the recommended distance that I would work to, but actually this would work for me, kind of thing. But and also that thing, 550 to get into a shower. Again, I always think about a shower door as a normal door, but actually it's much less distance than you would expect, actually, that means that you can get in and out if you're leaving it that open.
Exactly, especially with sliding doors as well. Actually, the entrance is smaller than people realise. So, but to echo what you said, you're completely right. It's what you find comfortable as an individual isn't blanketed to everybody else, which is why we say we've got these minimums there, but we would encourage you to exercise your own judgment. You've got to be comfortable with it yourself.
Yeah, that's great.
Brilliant. So then that leads us on nicely to optimal fixtures and layout. So when planning a layout, it's always best to start with areas of your bathroom that may have potential restrictions in their ability to be moved around. So this is predominantly fixtures such as the toilet. That's not to say that it isn't possible to move the toilet to a different area of the bathroom, but you should be aware that this can present its own challenges and can often wind up being quite costly. This is because it tends to be governed by the location of the soil pipe and may involve you having to core drill out external walls, change the soil pipe from cast iron to UPVC, or maybe even can go out of concrete substrates, etc. Once you've established the location of any parts of your bathroom that either cannot be moved or cannot be moved easily, it will be much simpler to review the space remaining and find suitable locations for the rest of the items. You must consider leaving appropriate distances around items for the purposes of navigating around the room with ease, plus the comfort and practicality of using the facilities, as mentioned a short while ago. It's essential that you also allow for easy cleaning and maintenance of these products too. You don't want to place items in such a way where it prohibits you being able to properly clean them, as this becomes very unhygienic. Where space is limited, it is advisable to look how we can reduce the footprint of some products and make sensible, space-saving selections instead. So, for example, if height permits, you would want to use a slimline frame and concealed cistern in order to mitigate making the overall projection of your toilet greater than a standard closed-coupled toilet. It wouldn't make sense to take up more floor space for the point of creating an illusion of more floor space. This is counterproductive. Consider using a quadrant or an offset quadrant shower enclosure rather than a square or rectangular shower enclosure for the softer corner and convenient diagonal entrance. This is actually one of my biggest personal go-tos when designing a smaller bathroom, for reasons shown in the images on your screen. The difference in the pinch point distance between the shower enclosure and the basin is monumental and will make such a huge difference to how the bathroom feels, especially on entering the room. Opt for products that have less of a bulky and cluttered appearance, avoiding things like chunky framework and ornate ceramic design with lots of grooves. Instead, aim for something more frameless or semi-frameless and sanitary ware with a more simple, timeless design. So, creating illusions of space. Creating illusions of space is perhaps one of the biggest design hacks when it comes to designing smaller spaces. You want to consider anything that is likely to make you feel like you have more space than you do and prevent the room from feeling cramped. The more floor space that you can see, the larger the room will feel, which is why selecting wall-hung products wherever possible, such as wall-hung vanity units or a wall-hung toilet, is beneficial. Plus, it helps to make the cleaning and maintenance side of things much easier, as you have less obstacles to battle with and nothing floor mounted for dust and dirt to collect around. Mirrors are hugely undervalued and can really contribute to making a room feel much larger than it is. As well as making it feel brighter, their reflective properties bounce light around your room and create the illusion of more space. Opt for wider mirrors, including up to the full wall length, to expand your space, or use taller mirrors to draw your eyes up toward the ceiling and detract from where your room lacks volume. Mirror shapes can also play a big role in softening the sharpness of sloping ceilings, for example, or to accentuate attributes of your room. Consider using mirrors in a non-standard setting too, such as in place of shower tray plinths, to create a floating optical illusion and extend your floor space further. I encouraged you earlier to keep components wall hung where possible, sticking with a compact and non-obtrusive footprint. It's important to mirror this when accessorizing. Use fittings such as wall hung toilet roll and brush holders, soap dispensers and tumblers to keep up a level of design cohesion throughout and keep your bathroom clutter-free. So, style and aesthetics, the fun part. Style is something that is very personal to an individual, so there really isn't a correct way to style a bathroom. However, in smaller spaces, it is traditional to use lighter, natural coloured wall and floor coverings, as this reflects the light and helps to maximise the feeling of spaciousness. For the same reasons stipulated earlier, you might also want to consider using a gloss or satin tile, as these will have subtle reflective properties, good for bouncing light around the room, but also renowned for being easier to keep clean in a humid and moisture-prone environment. That isn't to suggest for one moment that you cannot be bold and brave with your choices. In fact, cloakroom bathrooms are some of my favourite rooms to help design, as they are often full of character and drama, which can add a more interesting and a luxurious feel to the theme of the room. Why not use this space to showcase your creative side through wacky wallpapers or that snazzy light fitting that you love? You can really make the decoration of your bathroom the feature. There is a misconception that darker tones can make an already smaller bathroom feel even smaller, which is in fact a myth. Darker tones create an illusion of receding walls, which in turn can create a sense of more space. So, in summary of today's session, the best way to tackle refurbishing a small bathroom head-on would be to do research. Speak with tradespeople about any potential restrictions that you might be faced with. Put together a list of the components that your bathroom must have and a list of the components that you'd like in an ideal world. Use inspirational imagery to get a grasp of your style preferences. Identify any parts of your bathroom that are restricted to certain locations or that you might want in particular areas. Use the space that is left to place the other components, paying close attention to the distances between things to ensure that your bathroom stays practical and functional. Try and keep the footprint of certain items to a minimum where size and availability permits. Use floor space, lighter coloured wall and floor coverings, and the introduction of accessories such as mirrors to help create the illusion of more space. I hope that you found this session insightful and will take away some useful tips and tricks that will make planning your bathroom refurbishment much less intimidating and a lot more proactive. At the end of the day, these types of projects are not something that one gets to do very often. It's important that as well as taking on board the advice provided within this session, you must have fun in the process. We offer a design service over at drench.co.uk, where we charge £100 for this service, which is entirely redeemable against purchases made in excess of £1,000 within a 12-month period. If you feel you would benefit from a one-on-one session with us, we would be privileged to be able to help guide you through your bathroom refurbishment journey. And with that, I would like to open the floor to any questions that you might have.
That's great. Thank you so much. That was really amazing. I really enjoyed that. Let's see if Amy's collated. Okay, so we have a question here from Lydia. It would be great to know what to plan for with a 2-meter head height and what is possible.
So that will fall back on what we were saying earlier. So obviously you'll need to look at things like a low profile shower tray if you're wanting to have a shower. Something around 25 millimeters would be ideal. These can actually be installed as level access, and what I mean by that is they can be installed in line with the floorboards so that you've not got a step. So effectively you don't need to include that in your overall height. And then you want to look at a piece of glass or a shower enclosure that falls kind of 1850, 1900, so that you've got that ventilation that we spoke about earlier. In terms of what else you want to put in there, ultimately it's going to fall down to you and what you'd like to try to incorporate in the space. But that would be my kind of general recommendation.
That's great. I was thinking with that, oh, sorry, Amy's telling me I need to do this answer live. There we go, so people can see the question. when you're in a shower, I think I've been in a loft shower recently that it had the hose, the head of the shower kind of tilted at a 45-degree angle, so that you're it's coming out of the wall instead of having to come over and down. And I guess for taller people, although that's annoying that it might kind of be at face height, it means you've got more maneuverability in terms of using the space, perhaps.
The nice thing, depending on what type of shower heads you've got, so fixed shower heads typically will be on a ball joint, which will allow you to fully angle them as necessary, or you could consider a slider rail where you can obviously adjust the height, you can tilt them backwards and forwards. Again, it's going to fall down to that same thing I said of it's really dependent on your end user, the heights of the people that are typically going to be using the shower, for example, and what type of showering experience you want. So there is no blanket answer for it, but that would be perhaps what I would say.
Great, thank you. The alcove kits. I don't know if we've got, do you have any?
Drench.co.uk don't sell them, I'm afraid. You get them generally from the likes of hardware stores. So they're the types of places to look. I'm not sure if it's something that we could perhaps do off air and send across.
I think we've generally bought them online. So like from quite often people who sell bathroom trims do the kits as well. And I guess that's something to kind of really think about as well, is, trims, I always think make a big difference, the trims of where you're running, how you're running the alcove. And also you can buy trims that have that allow you to recess lights into them. So if you're Googling trims, that's a nice detail to look into, I guess.
There's a wonderful world of trims out there. I will say that there are some really stunning examples of what you can have. So yeah, definitely look into things like that.
It's something you might want to specify, like your toilet, just so that you get the look that you're going with, as opposed to just waiting to see what the contractor usually use. That's another one here. Any particular brands you'd recommend for brassware? I have a restricted height bathroom and would love a concealed brass shower, but not an over the head one.
I presume when you say brush, you mean brushed brass, perhaps. Crosswater. They are fabulous. Their concealed shower valves as well require a very small cavity versus some of their competitors, and probably one of my biggest go-tos for brassware. Also because they're one of the manufacturers out there with the largest range. So brass is one of those funny things where you want to try and keep as much of it with one manufacturer as possible, because it can vary quite considerably in tone and finish. It's different from chrome and matte black in those respects. So Crosswater is quite nice because it offers matching virtually everything: shower enclosures, heated towel rails, flush plates, you name it, they probably have it. So that would probably be what I would suggest.
Are there any issues with shower head height with a lower ceiling?
There can be from a fixed shower head perspective. Again, going to fall down to the end user, the heights of the people using the shower. If you've got an average height, then you should be okay. If you were to have a ceiling mounted shower head or a recessed shower head, even, because they're flush with the height of the ceiling. Failing that, then I'd probably recommend having a rail kit, as I said, so you can adjust the height and tilt it backwards and forwards to suit.
What kind of underfloor should a contractor always use to make the room absolutely watertight in case of sealants, joints, grout, etc. fail at some point?
So grout will always naturally let water through. That's just the nature of grout. But obviously, we're talking on a very minuscule level. You can use weddy boarding or something of that nature. It's good practice to fully tank the floor. It's not essential in this country, and a lot of contractors don't do it. But if you're wanting to ensure the room is as watertight as it can be, then as I've said, look at wedgie board or some form of cement backer board, and obviously tanking the room like you would for a wet room. That would probably be what I would suggest.
Yeah, is Deetram mat something as well, or is that's
exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically just like a layer that you put under the tiling or the flooring.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess that's good as well from if you're tiling from that thing you were saying about movement, that if it's a separating layer so that you're actually you're adhering onto another surface rather than straight onto the timber boards, which might move. So I've got lots of questions. Gemma says, thank you, very interesting. I was considering buying a toilet and basin combined vanity, but I have liked the wall hung items too. They are small batteries, but I was thinking, is boxing in more costly on labour tiles finishes if I go for wall hung items?
Yes is the short answer. It can be. Your initial idea of having a combination, so kind of what I would call fitted furniture, I love that idea. I've always been a big fan of fitted furniture. They do them in reduced depths as well, which can be great for smaller spaces. So I wouldn't be averse to running with your first idea. Obviously, remember what I said. Although wall hung items are great, especially like referring more to toilets, be careful not to fall into that trap of boxing out and making the overall footprint larger for the sake of trying to create an illusion of more space, because, as I said, that's counterproductive. So Gemma, to be honest, I wouldn't be averse to what you originally said.
Great, thank you. Under door gap for ventilation, what's the recommended size of the gap, please?
Under door gap, are we referring to the bathroom door?
Florent, I'm assuming you mean the bathroom door, because I guess that allows for the circulation, that allows for the extractor to work. I thought it was, I don't know, there's a big difference between.
Yeah, I mean, obviously ventilation above a shower enclosure, as I said earlier, is 100 to 150 millimeters. It's hard for me to answer that question just purely for the fact that it's going to depend on floor preparations, underfloor heating, things that could potentially raise the floor slightly, if that makes sense. I think averagely it's a couple of centimeters, 1.5 centimeters, maybe.
Yeah, so 15 mil. I think, Florent, we actually did a blog on extractor fans somewhere deep in our website. And I remember I did write it in there. So I'll try and dig it out afterwards. But I think if you have a look, I thought 15 millimeters as well.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
It is important because it can be easily forgotten. And in essence, what it means is when the door's closed, your extractor obviously is going to not work if it's pulling on an airtight room. So you need to have a flow of air that's coming into the room, even when the door's closed, so that extractor can work. Yeah,
exactly,
great question. Yeah. Next one. Also, what are the magnetic tile trims you mentioned? How do they work? Do you want to take that, Samantha?
That's similar to what we were saying about
the alcove kits,
wasn't it? Yeah.
So basically, it's a tile trim. So you imagine something that's going to finish the edges of the tiles on your bathroom, or timber if you're cutting out, and then the box that you make that's going to be lifted off. Again, you trim that with the same trim. Each of the trims has a magnet on it, so you don't need to have fixings. So quite often, what we were really upset about turning up to our projects is that the contractor had drilled huge screws and covered them with screw covers, which really just kind of shouted access panel here. So it just means that when you pop it in, it's obviously stuck, and the two trims stick together, and it means that you just kind of get something to just lever it out when you're.
It offers more of a seamless aesthetic, which is why it's perhaps both of our preferences. Because although it's doubling up as storage, you still want it to be discreet, don't you? So yeah.
That's how it works. Alcoves, aren't they prone to accumulating condensation and mold?
So you would naturally build a slight gradient to encourage water to fall off the mats. Obviously, on the assumption we're talking about ones that are within like a showering area. So because they don't get standing water, they're not prone to condensation and mold in any different way than the rest of the bathroom is.
Yeah, I have to say, we have had to remind contractors to add that small slope onto any ledges, because it's not good to have that. You're going to get mildew and things with that. But yeah, that small little slope is what's required. Yeah. That's the end of the questions that we have there. So that's a perfect time to kind of wrap up. I just had one more thought in my mind, which was, obviously when you're, I think the number one item that we return on projects is the basin, because I think it's just really hard to imagine like how big or small you're going to need something for the space. And just to say that, always make sure that when you're ordering all your items, like check the returns policy, because Drench has a great returns policy.
We do.
Just always make sure that whoever you order from, just check what the deal is. Some companies have a restocking fee, so you've bought a seat, you can actually have to pay like to get the return that you want, and also not to order things too far in advance so that you can't see it in the space, or order things to make, or not open them in time to return.
Exactly, yeah, no, and I would completely agree with that. I think it's important to make sure you read the terms and conditions of sale, and then obviously do check the items when they arrive. Ensure that the items you've ordered are free from mispicks and damages, because a lot of companies will have very stringent kind of ideas on what they want you to do. As you said, we've got a great returns policy, so just echo what you said, really.
I think that's just for shower trays and anything. I mean, sometimes contractors will say the shower tray, the hole's in the wrong place or whatever. So just build that into your thought process, that some things might need to go back and rejig, especially when your space is small.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much, Samantha. That was really a great talk, and thank you everybody for being so responsive on the questions. I hope that's been helpful for you all. As we say, we'll send the replay out, and we'll send those extra little bits of information in there so you've got them. And thank you. Thanks for being here today with us. And obviously this series is going to continue. So if you want to look at the website and sign up for any other of the talks that are upcoming, please do check that out, and check out Drench's design service as well. It's a great asset, I would say, to have a bathroom that's properly planned out. Is worth its weight in gold, and will make your bathroom obviously look good and function well as well. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks everybody.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Bye.